What's going on, guys, and welcome back to DSG. In this video, I'll be voicing my concern about the current trends we are seeing with characters like Tiana, Frank, and Lily. Now, we have seen this happen in DSA with one character in particular, and that is Miguel. These characters are behind a paywall that many people are not willing to or able to spend on. Granted, Miguel is now a reward during Showdown. He still was for a very long time behind a paywall. Some of you might be thinking, Dragon, what about Gadget, Raya, and Amari? These characters are similar, but here's the key differences on how they were released. Yes, there was a paywall, particularly for Gadget, but their events followed the end of their leaderboard contests. I could be wrong on Ryan and Mari if they had a leaderboard contest or not, but regardless, we at least knew what was needed for their event, especially for those who wanted to go after them the second time around. For Ryan and Mari, it was adventurers, and for the Rescue Rangers, it was going to be the Rescue Rangers team and Adventures as well, I believe, for Gadget. But regardless, we knew, at least for the second time, and that's where a lot of people go for these characters, is the second time for the semi-free-to-play community out there, or even the free-to-play community. You could go, if you went after them just like any other legendary, you could go after them and get them the second time. I know the chorus out there is probably still also grumbling about legendaries, and I'm just going to tell you guys straight up, legendary events, in my opinion, are free-to-play accessible. Free to play accessible. I want to emphasize that. Free to play accessible. And I discussed this with other DSA players and whatnot. They're not necessarily free to play friendly, because those, of course, who can wail on these characters, they will. But they are accessible to farm after, and you can definitely get them the second time around. For those, all the legendary teams out there, you can get one character through the tourney exchange, two characters through the Grand Campaign Exchange, and one or two other characters through the Elite Battle Farming. And for instance, like Elsa, you have Anna in the Tourney Exchange, and you have Kristoff in Elite Battles, and also the Club Exchange. And then you can switch off between Sven and Olaf, and luckily they're only 12 energy compared to some who have to go for 14 energy characters. So I would say legendary characters, again, they're free to play accessible, but they may not necessarily be free-to-play friendly in the sense where you can just go after them and get them. Now, what is a problem with Tiana and Frank and Lily? Well, they're actually not half bad, and they're particularly Tiana, who looks like a pretty good plug-and-play character, and that's from the discussions I've had with other people and just reading discussions on the Discords and whatnot of people discussing how they are actually fairly usable and going to be probably good characters. The problem there is that they are non-legendary characters, which to some people might be like, hey, that's awesome, we get to use these non-legendary characters to counter legendary characters, but there is the thing where they are behind a paywall, where, at least for right now, we can't get them. And because we don't know what is required to get them in the second time around and prepare for it for another 8-9 weeks, whatever the case may be, it's not going to be until the third time around where a lot of people are really going to be able to get these characters who don't spend, for instance. For those who spent time and effort into their legendaries, this can be a, big bump in the road for them, especially for the free-to-play community. And going back to not know what is needed for their events, for instance, will we need adventurers to get Lily and Frank? That seems like a pretty safe assumption, but at the same time, Mother Gothel didn't require Tango characters. She only required Wilds characters. Raya and Namari, they are Kingdom, and Raya also has the adventure tag, but they required adventures in order to get both characters. And previously, in older events such as Gizmo and Zurg, you had downtown villains for Zurg, and you had tech characters for Gizmo, which actually kind of made sense. And you can say the same thing for Wally and Eve. You require Gizmo to get them, but Gizmo's been around for a while, and they also require tech characters, so it kind of makes sense faction-wise. But with these characters, it's really up in the air. We don't know exactly which characters are needed to get them. I'm going for technically the third time around, because, again, we don't know what their events are, if there is an event, of course, and what they're going to require. With these characters, that's definitely my biggest concern, is how to prepare for them from a more free-to-play and semi-free-to-play perspective, and how they could possibly be plug-and-play encounters to legendary teams when people have invested so much time into legendaries, and this, at least for the time being, is a complete paywall to access these characters. Now, if you guys want to listen to a more in-depth discussion about this and hear other opinions as well from Sky High Fan, and my juice box. Definitely check out this week's episode of the podcast, the Club 33 podcast. It'll be up on the channel later in the week, and we'll definitely be discussing it this week because this is definitely a topic that is concerning us. We were cautious with Frank and Lily, just kind of brushed it off, but then Tiana came around, and Tiana also has Prince Naveen, or the Princess and the Frog is Prince Naveen. And there's other characters that they could easily do this to, these onesies and twosies, that maybe will not entail like major parts of their franchise or their films, for instance. So this is very concerning for me, and I don't like where it's going in the future for a lot of the community and the game. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely voice them in the comments down below. Check the Discord through the link tree, and you can check out the Discord where you can join us and join the discussion over there. Help us get to 1K subscribers, guys, so definitely hit the subscribe button. Anyways, guys, thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys next video. Have a good one.